Hey everyone, it's Jen Gleason Blue, and I wanted to share a little bit about how you can deal with some of the upper body tension you might experience when you drive. So I just got done with a 30-some hour, over 5-day drive with my family as we caravanned from the Northwest to New Mexico, and so I drove this car by myself with 2 cats. And so I didn't get a break. I didn't get to do all of the crazy stretching I tend to do when I'm sitting over there in the passenger seat. So the first thing I want to encourage you to do is to bolster yourself. So to get out of the bucket seat business. I have a cushion under my hips and I have a cushion behind my back, and that helps me not be in this, like we've all been there. You get into a car and you're like, oh my gosh, what's going on? So this requires you to use less tension to hold yourself in a position for a long period of time. That's a little bit kinder to your body. So your pelvis is in a better position, your spine's in a more neutral position. So once you get yourself bolstered, and when you're driving, I recommend that you do this often, is to scan for tension. So even as I was just sitting here, I noticed that my foot that's on the gas pedal is slightly held back, as though I'm gonna hit the gas too hard. The car's not even on. I can let it totally relax. But when we're driving, we tend to do that too. And for you, maybe it's the shoulders to the ears, maybe it's the jaw, maybe it's the holding the belly in or tensing the pelvic floor. But just see what you can do about using, or the hands, oh my gosh, the gripping of the hands. How little tension do you need in order to accomplish the driving task that you have in front of you? Now let's do a little bit of stretching. So this became my favorite thing to do. So I'll show you this way. So here I'm gonna reach my arm out forward this way. You could do this at any angle. And I'm gonna rotate. So you see how the elbow is moving, right? So this movement is happening here in the upper arm. I can keep that relatively stable and just flip my palm up and down, or back and forth, or over and under, I don't know. But that's not what we're doing. So you're gonna reach your arm out. And so practice this wherever you are. This is just a good sitting, perhaps, exercise session. And you're gonna move so that that elbow really comes up and faces the sky. Now the first thing I want, if you hyperextend, really watch that you don't bend backwards as you come up. So you're gonna keep a slight bend so that you at least keep a straight. You can always keep a bend if you wanna play around with that too. I want you to be mindful of a couple of things here. The first is that the shoulder hasn't crept up toward the ear. So if it has, relax it down. And then you'll notice that my shoulder is really far forward. The seat's way back there. So see if you can, without squeezing your shoulder blades together, just kind of rotate out and back this shoulder. Yeah, and then you're gonna straighten your arm from there. You're doing this all while you're driving safely. You're not watching the video while you're driving. But you just bring the shoulder back into place and then go ahead and do that movement. You'll find that the effort just to keep the shoulder back might be pretty challenging, but that once you get this rotation going of the upper arm with the shoulder more in place, that it's going to do some pretty intense things. I'm already fatiguing. It feels great. Go ahead and switch sides. So then you can reach out and you can allow that shoulder to come forward and see what that's like. Keep the shoulder down, relaxed, out of your ear. I'm going to center myself so I have a little bit more room on the side of the steering wheel. And then go ahead and bring that shoulder back into place. Again, see how much rotation you can get. I sort of have less on this side, it feels like. I wasn't looking as closely on the other side. So again, the eye of the elbow is what you're paying attention to the movement here, right? So how internally rotated can you get humerus and how externally rotated? All right, nice. Now what about that neck, right? We tend to... So go ahead and stretch an arm out. You can do this at a variety of angles. Again, always able to hold on if you need to in this way. And you're gonna just drop your ear to your opposite, in this case, your left ear to your left shoulder. And so you can kind of find some sweet spots. Keep a bend in that elbow, slight bend. If you tend to do this, well, maybe that feels really good. A little more extension. So you can play around with the neck. But if this is all you ever do, think about tucking the chin. Not so much that you can't see, but so much that you can get a new experience. And so you're going to think about the shoulder being away from the ear and the elbow reaching away from you. Yeah. Oh, so good, right? I don't even know if you can see that, like, thick. It's going to take me a little unwinding here from my drive. So then do the opposite side. So my window open is open right now. So I can do this out the window. I don't typically drive on the freeway with the window open because the noise bothers me. So I was doing this inside, so a different angle on my left than on my right. And again, the shoulder is relaxed out of the ear, and the neck, you just find that sweet spot where you can still see the road, and you get some great, I'm trying to move my hair here. Yeah, you can see that, right? Maybe some massage. I also actually did a decent amount of this, and this feels great in this position. So the elbow's slightly bent, you're reaching the elbow away, but you can massage yourself as you drive too. All right. So one of the things that happens, especially for those of us who maybe tend to lift our ribs a lot, and if you relax the ribs down, the only way to get the head up is to get the length here, which compresses everything here. So go ahead and ramp your head. So you're trying to create as many chins as you can, yeah? So the head is going back, but not just back, it's also going up, which kind of creates this movement. And we'll awkwardly hang out here for a little bit. And as you do this, you might notice that your shoulders want to come up. So a lot of this is about mindfulness. And even when you're exercising in the car, if what you want is to create a new experience for your body, you'll need to be mindful of how you're using it. So if you have all this tension here and you're doing your exercises like this, that's not going to get you what you want. It doesn't get me what I want. All right. So a big thing for me was the kind of the forearm, wrist, hand stuff. So I want to move into a little bit of that next. Notice the fidgeting. Like, I fidget. I told that to a client once. She was dealing with pelvic floor stuff, and she had a decent amount of driving, and I just said, move around, like, as much as you can, do hulas with your waist, like, whatever it takes. And that kind of movement, like, she was like, oh my gosh, like, I came out of my drive and I didn't feel terrible. So yeah, feel free to fidget. The wrist stuff though. So there's usually some space where you can stretch in this way, right? So I find that I tend to be, I use more of that position to drive than to say this one. So my wrist tends to be in that position. So if you're playing around with wrist flexion and extension, you can balance however you hold the steering wheel with some stretching in that way. This is also something, I'll switch sides with this hand. This is also something that I do on the seat, right? Or even between my legs, like just finding a spot. Where can I create a little bit more of the opposite physical experience for my body? So as you have your wrist being worked in this way, notice the elbow. So you can move the elbow, and that will give you a different sensation and a different stretch experience, a different lengthening experience, depending on where you are. All right. And for those of you who tend to go the other way, like you may find, I'm looking for a surface to do this, right? Like, or the windshield, there you go. So stretching that way. So the length happens here. I'll do both hands. I'm going to do both hands right now. Not what you're driving, right? I'm reaching the thumbs. All right, so we're going to take a version of this stretch and we're going to make it more active. So I'm going to put my hand, to the side. So here's what I'm going to have you do is you're just going to open your palm, right? And do you see the clunkiness here, the straight lines that I've got going on? What I want to do is see if I can create as much curve as possible. And so that, like, you're taking my clawed hand from the steering wheel and we're just like, oh yeah, trying to stretch it. So go ahead and press through all of those joints and see if you can really create a curved surface. So that's going to require you pressing in. And this kind of active stretching is so, like, as opposed to here you get the traction. That's what I'm sort of saying. Like there's a certain amount of the traction is doing the work for you, whereas here you're having to really use your own muscles. And go ahead and switch sides. And you probably find one hand is more tense than the other. So interesting going with my thumb here. All right. And again, how you rotate all of this and how the lower arm connects to your hand, you'll notice different sensations, different experience. Really pressing. And so notice if there are fingers that want to open up and fingers that don't. This is, by the way, just something useful to do from time to time. Oh my goodness, so challenging. All right, fantastic. With the fingers, you can continue to do, and I'm just going to show you this briefly because finger stretches take forever, right? So you can, if you're comfortable steering with your forearms, you can rest your forearms and use one hand to stretch your fingers in this way, right? So I'm pressing a little bit here, reaching back. And I would hold these. So when I was doing my big drive, I held these. And then you can do the same thing coming down, right? So keeping the straight finger. And this is kind of nice if you can get the wrist in that position, but again, when you're driving, you just make do. This is not an on the mat kind of experience. It's always that one, my first finger. And then the thumb can be really nice to stretch too. Some of these finger stretches you can do also like on your steering wheel or on your dashboard or on your gear shift. Like, you know, there can be all these, sorry to give you a finger, all kinds of ways to use what you have around you too, so that you don't have to take a hand off the wheel depending on how things are going for you. I want to bring you a little bit lower into the body. So this is something I do a lot when I'm driving, is I shift the ribs. So I'll shift, and so the ribs are going like this, side to side. I'm not doing a lot of twisting, it's just like a lateral shift. So the whole rib cage comes over. So my pelvis is staying in place. My ribs slide to the right. I'll drive for you. And then I'm gonna slide them to the left. My guess is, and I'm going to hold, my guess is that you have one direction where there's more mobility, one direction where you can move further or more comfortably, and one direction in which you feel resistance. So for me, that's to the left. And so I would do this more to the left. There's the pelvis, and I would slide to the right. And this would feel pretty easy, and I might do a couple extra to the left. There's more tension for me in the on the right side of my core. So this lateral shift to the left reveals some of that tension. And then the other thing I love to do is twist. So if you've been in various yoga or all kinds of classes, you may be familiar with sort of like you kind of reach back and you pull on something and you twist, right? And I can get a really, does not look fancy. My pelvis is still facing forward. Instead, what I'll have you do, and I'm going to take my hands off the wheel, and so when you practice this sitting, do it this way, and so that you get a sense for it when you're in the car. So you're not going to use the steering wheel to press. You're going to just use your core musculature, and you're going to hold at the end point of where that's possible for you. And then you can hold onto the steering wheel in the same relaxed way. So the twist is all happening as a result of your core function. You're not using your arms. Right. And so you can like hang out here for quite a while and drive, whatever feels good. Come back to center, and then again, you can leave your hands on the steering wheel, but you're not using any force with your arms, and you're gonna just use your core to twist the rib cage. This time the rib cage is going like, instead of side to side, right? It's like one side's coming forward and one side's going back, and you're twisting around the spine, really allowing the core to ring out as you maintain relaxed arms and shoulders. And obviously you have to turn your head straight to stay on the road. And this is probably one of my favorite things to do while driving, just because it's so hard, you know, with long drives, there's just so much stillness, and it can be really challenging. And then I want to bring you back up into the head, so relax. This surprised me that this was so useful to me, but I used to take speech therapy. I had some vocal fold issues, and as a singer, it was really problematic for me. And so anyway, I'd done some speech therapy, and I learned these tongue stretches that I still use and that I found really useful in the drive. So these don't make you look pretty, just so you know. So if you're with people you're trying to impress, I'd save the tongue stretches for another time maybe, or just get over it. So you're gonna stick your tongue out. And so keep doing that and really reach from the back of your tongue. Everything's relaxed. Let your tongue come back in. Now we're going to go bring the tip toward the nose. Nice and relaxed. And then we're going to go 4 diagonals. You can really think about reaching from the back. Let's go down the side. And up. And up the other way. And relax. And that for me really was like everything just felt so relaxed after that. So those are your stretches for when you're driving and you want to exercise your drive a bit. I want to add one last thought, and this is the one that I think in some ways was the most useful to me. I tend to get anxious when I know I have a lot of driving because I know the impact that it has on the body. And so in my head I was like thinking about how am I going to survive this drive, you know? And I realized that thought wasn't going to be useful to me. And instead I changed it to like, how am I going to thrive? How am I going to do great? And my mind shifted to the idea that I was going to be just fine. And that my body was going to handle this. And I was amazed. I really, like as somebody who exercises a lot and who loves to move her body and is mindful of those things, I found that I could be relatively negligent during this period of time, in part because I take such good care of myself the rest of the time, but also in part because I had that intention of feeling good. And so that enabled me to be mindful of the just support structures, right, that I put into place. Also the things that I listened to, the fact that when I did start to ache, I would move my body, that I was present to those needs because I was intentional about feeling good. But I didn't do it from a place of anxiety or fear, you know, that like this was going to be bad for me. I did it from a place of like, I got this, and my body's good, and it's resilient, and it can handle this, and I'll take care of it along the way. So I do have some unwinding to do, especially of my lower body. Haven't figured out how to deal with the hip flexor tension while driving. So if you have that figured out, let me know. I think the only solution there is to not drive so much and not sit so much. So that's what that's what my life's usually like. So I'll be returning to that, and that will feel really, really good. I hope that you have come away with some ways to take care of yourself when you have some drive time, and you want to help your body unwind a little bit and deal with some of that tension that all of us are prone to facing when we are still in a car for a long period of time. All right, bye.